Welcome to InfoStream, your daily current. Unsure what to listen to? Turn to us for today's headlines. Stay informed. U.S. government shutdown fuels economic and social distress. Trump tariffs face. Supreme Court challenge. U.S. military intensifies drug trafficking operations. China adjusts chip export rules. Global nuclear threat levels rise. And Hamas releases hostage remains. Nato maintains support for Ukraine. Ireland considers asylum seeker fees. Tanzania elections remain unstable. Electoral informant in America. A report on national Grapples mandates New York and four criminal Grapples entry in Greenland faces political instability. Grapples as well as faces evil. Uncertainty and hardship continue to escalate across multiple communities due to the ongoing U.S. government shutdown, with significant repercussions for Native American populations and broader economic instability. The shutdown's impact is compounded by delayed SNAP benefits, layoffs within federal agencies, and the resulting anxieties surrounding food and fuel security, particularly as winter approaches. A central theme emerging from recent reports is the growing frustration among Democratic lawmakers regarding the handling of the shutdown. Senator Bernie Fetterman emphasized the need for Democrats to take ownership of the situation, stating, "Democrats really need to own the shutdown. I mean, we're shutting it down." This sentiment reflects a desire to proactively address the crisis rather than reacting to Republican messaging. The shutdown's effects are particularly acute for Native American communities, where federal layoffs are disrupting crucial programs supporting education, health, and economic development. Native leaders argue that the administration's actions represent a breach of treaty obligations and a failure to uphold its responsibilities to tribal nations. Concerns are mounting regarding the potential for SNAP benefits to be disrupted, adding to existing food insecurity challenges exacerbated by recent natural disasters like Typhoon Halon, which devastated Alaskan villages. Furthermore, Senator Lisa Murkowski highlighted the disproportionate impact of the shutdown on Native communities, noting that even programs not explicitly focused on tribal affairs are affected by the reduced federal workforce. She emphasized the urgency of ensuring access to essential services, including food, fuel, and health care, particularly as winter sets in. Adding to the complexity, Senator Bernie Fetterman reiterated the need for Democrats to take decisive action, acknowledging the gravity of the situation and the imperative to address the immediate needs of affected communities. The ongoing disruption underscores the significant challenges facing the U.S. government and the urgent need for a resolution to the shutdown. Trump tariffs head to Supreme Court in case eagerly awaited around the world. The Supreme Court is set to hear a pivotal case concerning President Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs, a battleground with significant economic implications. The core of the dispute revolves around whether Trump's imposition of these tariffs, primarily utilizing a 1977 emergency law, is lawful. A group of small businesses, including a toy maker and a wine importer, are challenging the legality of the tariffs, arguing they are excessive and detrimental to their operations. If the court sides with the plaintiffs, Trump's trade strategy, encompassing tariffs on goods from China, Mexico, and Canada, would be overturned, potentially leading to a refund of billions of dollars collected through these taxes. The case's importance extends beyond the immediate parties involved. The Supreme Court is grappling with a broader question: how far does presidential power extend, particularly in trade regulation? Legal analysts predict a difficult outcome, with a ruling favoring Trump potentially granting future presidents greater authority. The administration has argued that the emergency law provides the necessary framework for these actions, while opponents contend that only Congress has the constitutional authority to establish tariffs. Despite the high stakes, major corporations have largely remained silent, a strategic decision likely driven by a fear of retribution from the White House. Several smaller businesses, including those directly impacted by the tariffs, have stepped forward to challenge the administration. These plaintiffs represent a diverse range of industries, highlighting the widespread concern over the tariffs' impact. The Supreme Court's decision will have far-reaching consequences for global trade and economic policy. The administration has warned of catastrophic consequences if the tariffs are overturned. But the plaintiffs argue that the tariffs have created an asphyxiating tax and pain cave for businesses. The case has complicated the White House's trade deals, including a recently agreed upon EU trade agreement. Several former national security officials, a group representing the watchmaking industry, and other entities have filed amicus briefs supporting the plaintiffs' arguments. Despite the significant opposition, the administration maintains its position, emphasizing the potential benefits of the tariffs in addressing trade imbalances and combating illicit activities. The outcome remains uncertain, with the court's decision anticipated to set a precedent for presidential power in trade matters. U.S. military expands Caribbean and Pacific drug trafficking campaign. The United States military has initiated a significant and escalating campaign targeting drug trafficking organizations operating within the Caribbean Sea and Pacific Ocean. This multifaceted operation, spearheaded by President Donald Trump, involves a series of lethal kinetic strikes against vessels suspected of involvement in transporting illicit narcotics. The campaign's core objective is to dismantle transnational criminal networks deemed narco-terrorists and disrupt their operations, aligning with the strategy of treating these organizations as equivalent to traditional terrorist groups. The initial phase of the campaign focused on the Caribbean, with 7 attacks resulting in the deaths of 25 individuals across 6 vessels. These strikes targeted vessels linked to Tren de Aragua, a Venezuelan organization, and other designated terrorist organizations. Despite the escalating action, the U.S. military reported no casualties among its personnel. Notably, 2 survivors were repatriated from Ecuador and Colombia, though one remains missing after a strike in the Pacific. Expanding its operations, the military then launched attacks in the Pacific Ocean, resulting in the deaths of 4 individuals aboard 2 vessels. This expansion indicates a broadening of the campaign's geographic scope. The U.S. military has consistently characterized these organizations as posing a significant threat to national security and public health, justifying the aggressive approach. The campaign has drawn criticism from various sources, including Colombian President Gustavo Petro, who accused the U.S. of killing an innocent citizen. Furthermore, the U.S. military's strategy of treating drug traffickers as terrorists has raised concerns regarding potential human rights violations and the legal implications of targeting individuals involved in criminal activities. The ongoing operation represents a substantial escalation in the U.S. government's approach to combating drug trafficking, with potentially far-reaching consequences. China eases chip export ban following trade deal, amidst academic freedom concerns. Following a meeting between Xi Jinping and Donald Trump in South Korea, the United States and China have reached a new trade deal, de-escalating a trade war initiated by the Trump administration. Key elements of the agreement include the easing of an export ban on automotive computer chips produced by Nexperia, a Chinese-owned company based in the Netherlands, allowing resumption of production for global markets. This followed China's consideration of exempting some firms from the ban. However, the deal is complicated by ongoing concerns regarding academic freedom, particularly at Sheffield Hallam University. The university faced intimidation from Chinese National Security Service officials seeking to halt research into alleged human rights abuses in Xinjiang, focusing on forced labor allegations. This pressure led to the university's decision not to publish a final research phase into supply chains and forced labor, resulting in the closure of the university's Social and Economic Research Institute and the layoff of its research team. The university's actions were driven by a lack of professional indemnity insurance and concerns about potential scrutiny, a situation exacerbated by a libel lawsuit from Smart Shirts Lund. The trade deal also encompasses soybean exports, 12 million tons in the last 2 months of 2025, followed by 25 million metric tons annually for the next 3 years, the suspension of rare earth mineral export controls for a year, and a reduction in tariffs on fentanyl imports. Despite these agreements, tensions remain, with the UK Parliament highlighting universities' vulnerability to Chinese pressure regarding academic freedom. Sheffield Hallam has apologized to Professor Laura Murphy and pledged to support her research, but the situation underscores broader concerns about academic freedom and international relations. The university's enrollment figures from China have decreased significantly, representing only 73 students in 24-25. The Chinese embassy maintains that over 200,000 Chinese students study in the UK, highlighting the continued importance of this student market. Baroness Helena Kennedy Casey emphasizes the vulnerability of UK universities due to financial pressures and the potential for influence. Nuclear threats are worsening, a rising global risk. The world is facing a heightened risk of nuclear conflict, driven by a confluence of factors including escalating tensions, strategic maneuvering, and technological advancements. The core concern stems from a perceived loosening of arms control agreements, particularly the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, START, which has expired, leaving the US and Russia without formal limits on their nuclear arsenals. This has been exacerbated by Russia's actions, including overseeing nuclear exercises and threatening to resume nuclear tests, mirroring a similar move by Donald Trump. Vladimir Putin's rhetoric, warning of a nuclear conflict if NATO continues to assist Ukraine, has further intensified the situation. Donald Trump's recent order to potentially renew nuclear weapons tests, spurred by Russia's actions, has added to the urgency. However, Secretary of Energy Chris Wright later clarified that any tests would be systems tests, not nuclear explosions, alleviating immediate concerns. Despite this, the prospect of renewed explosive testing remains a potential destabilizing factor. China's rapid expansion of its nuclear arsenal, with projections reaching 500 warheads by 2035, is another significant concern. Beijing's refusal to engage in arms control talks and its increasing military capabilities pose a challenge to strategic stability. The integration of artificial intelligence into nuclear decision-making systems adds another layer of complexity and potential risk, as highlighted by the doomsday machine scenario. Several nations are contemplating acquiring nuclear weapons, including South Korea and Saudi Arabia, driven by security concerns and the perceived lack of reliable security guarantees from the United States. Expanding the U.S. nuclear deterrence umbrella to countries like Saudi Arabia could reduce proliferation risks. The expiration of START and the lack of new arms control agreements have created a dangerous vacuum. To mitigate these risks, a coordinated global effort is crucial. This includes strengthening deterrence, establishing new norms against nuclear proliferation, and limiting the use of AI in nuclear command systems. The Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, currently dormant due to Russian withdrawal and U.S. Senate inaction, represents a potentially valuable tool. Renewing efforts to ratify and implement the CTBT would be a positive step. Ultimately, navigating this era requires a renewed commitment to diplomacy, arms control, and strategic stability, prioritizing human control over nuclear decision-making to avoid the potential for catastrophic outcomes. The current situation demands proactive measures to prevent a dangerous escalation and safeguard global security. Hamas returns 3 hostage bodies to Israel, and Israel has officially confirmed that Hamas has returned the bodies of 3 Israeli soldiers, Colonel Asaf Hamami, Captain Omer Nutra, and Staff Sergeant Oz Daniel, who were held hostage following the October 7, 2023 attack. The confirmation, released by the Prime Minister's office, brings the total number of confirmed deceased hostages returned to Israel under the terms of a U.S.-brokered ceasefire agreement. 8 other Israeli and foreign hostages remain in captivity within Gaza. The slow pace of recovery has become a significant obstacle to the second phase of the ceasefire, which includes crucial discussions regarding Gaza's governance, Israeli troop withdrawal, Hamas disarmament, and reconstruction efforts. Israel has accused Hamas of deliberately delaying the return of the deceased bodies, while Hamas has attributed the delays to the challenging conditions and extensive rubble within Gaza. Colonel Hamami, a commander of the Southern Brigade of the Israel Defense Forces, IDF Gaza Division, was among the first troops to reach combat zones following the initial Hamas assault. Captain Nutra, an Israeli-American dual national, was killed in battle near the Gaza perimeter and subsequently taken as a hostage. Staff Sergeant Daniel, serving in the IDF's 7th Armored Brigade, also perished in a battle near the Gaza perimeter and was similarly abducted. The Hostages and Missing Families Forum expressed profound sorrow and urged immediate action to secure the release of all remaining hostages. The forum emphasized the urgency of the situation, highlighting the family's desperate need for resolution. The return of these 3 bodies represents a partial success in the ongoing negotiations, but the fate of the remaining hostages remains the central focus of the fragile ceasefire agreement. The IDF continues to assert its commitment to securing the release of all individuals held captive. NATO's unwavering commitment to Ukraine's defense and a lasting peace. A senior NATO official, Admiral Giuseppe Capodragon, has affirmed the alliance's steadfast commitment to Ukraine until a durable peace is achieved, emphasizing that negotiations are nearing a necessary point given the immense human cost of the ongoing conflict. Capodragon views the Russia-Ukraine war as a strategic failure for Vladimir Putin, highlighting the accession of Finland and Sweden to the Western alliance as a direct consequence of Russia's invasion. He firmly believes Putin will not establish a compliant government akin to Belarus. NATO members have responded to the conflict with a significant increase in defense spending, agreeing to raise it to 5% of GDP by 2035, a move largely driven by persistent calls from U.S. President Donald Trump. This demonstrates a renewed focus on collective defense and national security. Concerns regarding Russia's development of long-range, nuclear-powered weapons, such as the Burevestnik and Poseidon, have been addressed with reassurance. Capodragon dismissed these concerns, asserting that NATO's nuclear alliance is purely defensive, designed to protect its 32 member nations and a population of 1 billion people. He explicitly stated that NATO is not threatened by these weapons. The potential for future attacks, particularly in the Baltic states Estonia, Latvia, And Lithuania has been acknowledged, but underscored the crucial role of Article 5, which dictates that an attack on one NATO member is considered an attack on all. This commitment, including the continued support from the United States, solidifies the alliance's resolve to defend its members. The ongoing conflict has served as a catalyst for increased European defense capabilities and a reinforced transatlantic partnership, signaling a long-term commitment to Ukraine's security and a future based on lasting peace. Midterms show Democratic enthusiasm surge amidst Trump's declining approval. A new CNN poll, conducted by SSRS, reveals a significant shift in American political sentiment, demonstrating a burgeoning enthusiasm among Democrats heading into the upcoming midterm elections. The poll indicates a 12-point advantage for Democrats among registered voters who express extreme or very high motivation to vote, highlighting a potential game changer for the November contests. This advantage is fueled by widespread dissatisfaction with President Donald Trump's performance and the state of the nation. Trump's approval rating stands at 37%, the lowest of his second term in CNN polling, mirroring his approval from his first term's initial stages. His disapproval rate is a substantial 63%, marking the highest level recorded across both terms. This decline is compounded by broader public dissatisfaction with the country's condition, 68%, and the economy, 702%, with 61% attributing this to Trump's policies. Democrats hold a considerable lead in voter motivation, particularly among those concerned about the state of democracy, 45%, and the economy and cost of living, 38%. This surge in enthusiasm is coupled with a deep-seated belief that Trump has gone too far in utilizing presidential power, the 61%, and in his handling of the White House teardown, the 54%. Furthermore, a majority of Americans disapprove of the Republican-controlled Congress's support for Trump, a 55%, though this support remains strong within the Republican base, 63%. Democrats, conversely, view the party's congressional leadership as insufficiently opposing Trump, 45%. The poll underscores a critical dynamic. Widespread negative perceptions of Trump are translating into heightened voter engagement on the Democratic side. This shift presents a significant challenge for Republicans, demanding a strategic reassessment of their approach to the midterm elections. The data reveals a nation increasingly motivated by dissatisfaction with the current administration and a desire to send a clear message to Washington. Irish government considers charging asylum seekers for accommodation. The Irish government is contemplating a significant shift in its approach to supporting international protection applicants by introducing charges for accommodation. Under proposed plans, working asylum seekers could be required to pay between $215 of $13 and $238 over $208 per week to cover the cost of their state-provided housing. These proposals, spearheaded by Justice Minister Jim O'Callaghan and Junior Minister Colm Brophy, stem from a rising number of asylum applications, currently totaling 32,774 individuals residing in state accommodation as of last July. The government intends to implement a tiered system based on weekly wage earnings. 9 distinct bands will determine the contribution amount, ranging from to 15 for earning 3971 to 85 to 238 for those earning U600 of 526 or more. This reflects a move away from the existing to 38.80 to 34 per adult and 29.80 to 26 per week expenses allowance. The initiative follows criticism directed at TU Nasty Simon Harris last week, who suggested a serious reevaluation of existing asylum policies. The government anticipates that approximately 7,600 asylum seekers currently eligible for state accommodation will be subject to these charges. Failure to pay, leading to significant arrears, could result in legal action, including court proceedings and potential debt collection. Furthermore, asylum seekers granted international protection could face the denial of citizenship if outstanding accommodation debts remain unpaid. The proposed changes are slated for discussion at a cabinet subcommittee meeting on Monday, with approval proceeding to a full cabinet meeting. The government estimates that the implementation of these charges will require the drafting of new legislation. This represents a notable shift in policy, aiming to reduce the financial burden on the state while addressing the ongoing challenges associated with accommodating a large influx of international protection applicants, particularly in the context of supporting Ukrainian refugees. The overall strategy seeks to balance the needs of asylum seekers with the government's financial constraints. Tanzania elections, continued unrest and international concern, following a disputed election marred by violence and rejected by the opposition. Samia Suluhu Hassan was sworn in as Tanzania's president amid heightened security measures. The inauguration, held at a military parade ground due to public restrictions, was attended by regional leaders and dignitaries. The Electoral Commission declared Hassan the winner with 98% of the vote, a result contested by opposition parties who allege a sham election and report hundreds of deaths. These reports, corroborated by diplomatic sources, range from 500 to 800 fatalities, with the UN Human Rights Office documenting at least 10 deaths. The election's aftermath has been characterized by widespread unrest and a communications blackout, limiting information flow and hindering verification efforts. Many Tanzanians remain unaccounted for, with reports of missing individuals, including Kenyan nationals. The government's response has been criticized, with international figures, including Pope Leo XIV and EU Foreign Affairs Chief Kaja Kallas, urging restraint and expressing deep concern over the escalating violence and loss of life. Opposition parties, such as Chadema, have vehemently rejected the election results and are calling for a fresh election. Key opposition figures, including Tundu Lissu and Luhaga Mapaina, are detained, and several fringe parties were permitted to participate, reflecting the CCM's continued dominance in Tanzanian politics since independence. The government's denial of alleged human rights abuses and claims of a free and fair election have been met with skepticism. The situation has triggered a global response, with international organizations like Amnesty International documenting instances of repression, including enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings. Rising food, fuel, and essential goods prices, coupled with school closures and a lack of public transport, exacerbate the challenges faced by the population. The BBC reports that police are investigating the role of foreign nationals, particularly Kenyans, in the demonstrations and vandalism. The ongoing unrest underscores a critical period for Tanzania, demanding international attention and a commitment to upholding democratic principles and human rights. Federal election monitors spark controversy amidst off-year elections. The Department of Justice is deploying federal election monitors to polling locations in New Jersey and California, triggering concerns about potential political interference in upcoming off-year elections. This action, prompted by requests from Republican parties, centers on allegations of improper ballot handling and election irregularities, rather than traditional concerns about the Voting Rights Act. The monitors, comprised of Justice Department lawyers, are tasked with observing and documenting, but not intervening or influencing the voting process. They are not authorized to interact with voters or poll workers, access voting machines, or participate in vote counting. Historically, the dispatching of these monitors has been a bipartisan practice, occurring in 18 states under President Trump, 24 states during the 2022 midterms, and 27 states during the 2024 presidential election. However, the focus on ballot security, a term used by the Justice Department, and the specific targets of New Jersey and California have heightened anxieties. New Jersey hosts a governor's race, while California is determining whether to redraw congressional maps to create 5 Democratic-friendly seats. California's redistricting effort is part of a nationwide political strategy to gain an advantage in next year's midterm elections. The controversy stems from the deployment of a Justice Department official, Michael Gates, a former Huntington Beach city attorney and proponent of voter identification laws, as one of 2 monitors in Orange County, California. Gates' appointment, along with the department's request for state-level voter roll data, has raised alarms among state election officials who view it as federal overreach. California Attorney General Rob Bonta has responded by deploying his own observers to monitor the Justice Department's monitors. The department insists its role is purely observational, aiming to document any potential issues, rather than to influence the election outcome. Despite this assertion, the situation remains contentious, fueled by concerns about potential political motivations and the department's expanded role in election oversight. Judge extends Portland National Guard deployment. A Block A federal judge, Karen Immergut, has extended her order preventing President Donald Trump from deploying National Guard troops to Portland, Oregon, until Friday, prolonging a legal battle over presidential power and state sovereignty. The decision follows a 3-day trial centered on the administration's attempt to federalize and deploy Oregon and California National Guard units. The core issue revolves around whether the deployment constituted an unlawful infringement on Oregon's authority, and whether the situation in Portland warranted such intervention. The trial revealed several key details. Despite Immergut's initial restraining order issued on October 4th, as many as 10 National Guard soldiers were present at the Portland IC facility until midnight, and another group remained until 2:00 a.m., a fact disclosed by Justice Department attorneys. This contradicted the administration's claims of immediate compliance. Furthermore, top officials from the Federal Protective Service were reportedly not consulted before Trump's order, expressing surprise at the deployment. Testimony indicated that while sporadic and isolated instances of violence, including property damage and confrontations between protesters and counter-protesters, occurred, they did not constitute a rebellion or an organized group engaged in armed hostilities. The majority of incidents involved low-level, unlawful conduct and disruptive behavior. State and city attorneys argued that the demonstrations, while containing sporadically inexcusable crimes and peaceful protests, were manageable by local law enforcement, which had been amplified by Trump's intervention. The Justice Department contended that federal agents faced disturbingly intrusive behavior and organized violence from protesters, often equipped with bats and improvised weapons. However, the judge found no credible evidence to support these claims or the necessity of deploying National Guard troops. The case is being reconsidered en banc by a broader 11-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and a date for that hearing has not yet been set. Nearly 250 arrests or citations were made against protesters at the ICE building between June and October, and the status of criminal charges remains unclear. The legal dispute highlights the ongoing tension between federal authority and state autonomy, particularly in response to demonstrations. Trump expresses reluctance to fund New York City if Mamdani elected. Donald Trump has stated his intention to reduce federal funding to New York City should Zohran Mamdani be elected mayor, characterizing it as hard, due to concerns about Mamdani's left-wing political views. Trump views Mamdani's potential election as a communist scenario, suggesting it would be a waste of money. The administration has repeatedly sought to curtail federal grants to Democratic-run areas, and opinion polls indicate Mamdani's lead over her rivals. Rama Duwaji, Mamdani's wife, is deliberately maintaining a low public profile, contrasting with traditional first spousal roles. She has refrained from campaign appearances, television interviews, or magazine profiles, and her Instagram account largely reflects her artwork depicting Middle Eastern women and the plight of Palestinians. While she was present during key moments, including Mamdani's primary vote and his victory speech, she has declined interviews and actively avoids aligning her activities with the campaign. Duwaji's artwork, frequently featuring critiques of the Israeli government and its conduct in Gaza and Syria, aligns with Mamdani's political stances, generating some controversy within New York City's Jewish population. Political science professor Lisa Burns notes a merging of their advocacy work, suggesting Duwaji's support complements Mamdani's campaign efforts. Historically, first spouses have played significant roles in mayoral administrations, such as Chirlane McCray under Bill de Blasio, who influenced staff picks and budget negotiations. Diana Taylor, Michael Bloomberg's partner, maintained her independence and professional identity. Duwaji's presence at campaign events, like a sip and pour event at a senior citizen center, highlights her quiet support. During the event, Mamdani admitted his artistic skills were lacking, showcasing a lighthearted approach. Duwaji's background includes a degree in illustration and a career in art, with her work appearing in prominent publications. She met Mamdani on the dating app Hinge, and their relationship evolved alongside Mamdani's political career. The couple's marriage, finalized in February 2024, was a civil ceremony, and Duwaji's artwork continues to serve as a platform for her views and advocacy, shaping her role within the campaign. The Welsh government's draft budget amidst political uncertainty. The Welsh government is set to release its detailed draft budget on Monday, following a critical period of political maneuvering. The budget, totaling an estimated £27 billion, represents an increase of $800 million compared to the previous year's allocation. However, this expansion is facing significant challenges due to the government's precarious position within the Senate. Following the defeat in the carefully by-election, Labour now lacks the necessary majority to pass the budget without securing support from at least 2 opposition members of the Senate Amidst. Prior to the by-election, Labour relied on the support of Liberal Democrat Ms. Jane Dodds to secure passage of the budget. The loss of the seat has dramatically altered the political landscape. With Plaid Cymru's victory in the carefully by-election, Labour is now obligated to negotiate and gain the backing of at least 2 other opposition parties to ensure the budget's approval. Finance Secretary Mark Drakeford has signaled that the budget will largely maintain existing policies, increasing spending to account for inflation. However, concerns remain, particularly from local government, who argue that the proposed funding levels are insufficient to meet rising costs. Failure to secure a cross-party agreement could result in a budget passing at only 75% of this year's level, potentially leading to substantial cuts in public services and significant job losses. The current situation underscores the urgency for the Welsh government to forge a broader consensus within the Senate to avert a potentially damaging financial outcome. The negotiations are expected to be intense, with the future of public services hanging in the balance. Political uncertainty and security concerns in Thailand. The Pheu Thai Party is actively formulating a no-confidence motion against the Bumjathai-led minority government, contingent upon the People's Party's participation. Strategic discussions are ongoing regarding timing and scope, with preparations made for a potential general election should the House be dissolved, before a censure debate can occur. The party's approach hinges on observing ministerial performance and gathering evidence of misconduct or corruption, particularly given the vulnerability of the government amid multiple crises, including escalating border security issues. Internal debate centers on filing the motion in the next parliamentary session or adhering to the terms of the Memorandum of Agreement. MOE established after Paetongtarn Shinawatра's dismissal and Anudin Charnvirakul's appointment as Prime Minister. This MOE stipulated a 4-month timeline for elections. Simultaneously, the Senate Committee on Military and National Security has expressed serious alarm over a surge in violent incidents in Thailand's southern border provinces. Specifically, the committee highlighted attacks orchestrated by the Barisan Revolusi Nasional (BRN) militant group, citing a bombing at a strategic checkpoint in Patani, ranger fatalities, and widespread destruction of infrastructure and CCTV cameras. Intelligence suggests the BRN intends to escalate attacks daily, utilizing new recruits and targeting government personnel, local informants, and drug users to gain popular support, including employing young women as informants. Committee spokesman Chayong Manirangsakal urged Eltgen Narathip Poinak, commander of the 4th Army, to urgently reassess the security situation and implement measures to curb the violence. He criticized recent reshuffles within the military, questioning the promotion of allies over experienced specialists. The overall situation reflects significant political instability and heightened security concerns across multiple sectors of Thai society.